So talk to me about when you are developing your teams, and I mean teams operationally and, on the field. What are some of the work habits that you would coach or look for or instill or that you learn? Give me examples, please.
Yeah, I think you used one of the words just a second ago, and it starts with prioritizing, right? Understanding, being being smart enough to understand what the priorities are. You have to think about what your end deliverables are going to be, but what are the priorities that are going to be part of the process that get you to a certain place? So I think it starts with priorities. I think, it's time management. It's understanding the big picture of what is deliverable and when it's going to be deliverable. It's preparation. And that was a key to us in terms of, uh, again, the work habits, learning how to prepare and teaching yourself how to prepare. And again, I'm going to probably reference a number of things that we did. We had an epic call yesterday, Steve, you and I. So many of the things that we
It's
talked
been a lot
about,
of fun.
yeah, figuring out as part of your process to get the right work habits comes with, it also involves humility, right? Understanding some of your own idiosyncrasies, some of your own limitations, because the truth is, everyone, even the greatest leaders, have limitations. And figuring out how you learn and what are the work habits that you have to develop that can mesh with your own work ethic to get things done. Perfect example. Part of preparation involves reading, in every industry, or listening. So I'm a very visual person. No, one of the things you have to do is, again, have some humility of your own to understand, again, not just your idiosyncrasies, but some of your shortcomings. And with your work habits, one of the things that I had to figure out, and I'm just using this as an example, is how I how I can consume things and retain things. And I showed you and Grace my calendar yesterday, and how every
Hold it up, Scott. Go ahead,
conversation.
hold it up again. And for those of you that are on YouTube, you can see this.
Oh,
And
yes,
we'll,
I'm sorry.
yeah, no, so people on YouTube can see this. So just show up your calendar and describe it to everybody because you and I
So
we talked about
my
this yesterday.
my calendar is a regular calendar, and I have highlighted different colors. And I'll hold these up too, because every meeting that I go into, I have a red pen and a blue pen, and I have a series of highlighters. And those who are watching on YouTube can see I have a green, blue, pink, orange, and yellow. And every single color distinguishes some thought for me and helps my mind organize things. So in showing you that, um, it's for me personally and other people, part of the work habit becomes, how do you organize not only the job you're doing and your process, but your own thoughts with this degree of, I used to be embarrassed by that, right? That I would walk into a meeting, but I had previously learned I had a lot of academic shortcomings. It's funny, when I heard Sean Callaghy, who you had on a podcast a while ago, he talked about how he failed high school geometry. Well, you know what? Guilty as charged. And one of the people that works for you, Matt Spencer, or Matthew Spencer, an attorney, he will he will confirm that I failed 10th grade math. I was much better the second time, but there were certain ways that I learned, and these were things that were embarrassing when I was younger. But then when I found the highlighter, the change that it made in my ability, again, to consume, retain, and eventually process and regurgitate or put out into the world in whatever my form was remarkable. So simple things like that. But, that whole idea of my work habits had to change by the way that I prepared. And preparation is the key. And then prioritizing. Again, you use that word very naturally, Steve. And it's so important to be able to prioritize, because you could be working as hard as you want, but if you're not finding the hacks, not only for yourself, but to share whatever knowledge you end up gaining to other people, like, we all knew teachers and professors that were brilliant, but if they couldn't communicate those things, what did it matter?
Let me ask you this question. What psychological tests did you use
Mm.
and why?
So, what we used was this test that was done by a sports psychologist, Bob Troutwine, who's from the Midwest, and we got to know Bob when psychological testing had become a thing that you were doing on players. And like many psychological testing when it first started, you were just trying to identify things and identify things about people's personality, what their strengths, limitations, their work ethic would be like, maybe their work habits. And one of the things that we learned over time, or I learned working for Bill in Cleveland, as because I was on a very much lower level than what I was able to ascend to. Um, but Bill had 3 rules. Eh, There was be on time, pay attention, work hard.
Resolving the case with elegance, class, and respect of
Respect.
everybody was a radically different outcome. And that was life changing for me as a professional, as a practitioner. And I would get cases from opposing party. I would get cases from opposing attorneys. And the reason usually was I was told I listened well. I respected the other party. I did things like that, which were part of self-development courses I was taking, part of books I was reading, parts of painful lessons I was learning. I'm still learning. So I totally get it. I totally get it. I think what you said there was perfect and beautiful and really made me uncomfortable because I don't like it.
Again, that was not my intention, but this is part of it. I mean, it's owning some of your own crap, but also surrounding yourself with people who are going to consistently be willing to let the emperor know when he has no clothes on,
Oh
right?
my
To
God.
not be a sycophant, to not and hiring people like that around you, um, and not just saying it, and understanding that how important that is, and realizing some of your own stuff. But here's the other thing that happens is I think when we realize some of our brokenness and some of the stuff and how deep rooted it is, that we also have to find this moment not to justify our behavior, not to enable ourselves, but also to show ourselves a little bit of grace, right? And say, okay, screw that one up. And once you know better, do better, right? That's not me, that's Maya Angelou, right? Do as good as you can, and then once you know better, do better. And that's part of it too, because that bit of humility, that bit of mea culpa, again, just humility allows other people to maybe want to work with you more and show grace to yourself and show grace to others when they screw up as well.
What did you learn today out of this episode about your life, about your career, about work habits? What did you learn? And then you and I are going to have a separate episode to talk about, you know, the 3 rules.
I I I think part of learning is also not just learning something new. In my opinion, it's being reinforced and doubling down and tripling down on certain things that you know are the right things. And I think part of what was learned today was, and I wrote some of this down. It was I wrote down the word respect slash friction, right? Um, you were saying that this conversation was becoming uncomfortable for you. It was uncomfortable for me. And many of us like to talk about get comfortable with being uncomfortable, but how many we love saying that to other people. And I think part of what I'm learning through this conversation too is, yeah, I'm being very open and vulnerable on some stuff here. And as we were talking about this yesterday off the record, but I'm learning the more uncomfortable that I allow myself to be and talk about some of this stuff. Um, I'm learning that it opens other, not just doors, but sometimes they're just little windows into myself. And I'm taking some of these notes to myself.